What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Going for 2 IDP Cover Zero podcast. This is a new podcast that we're bringing out this year. We're going to be here weekly for you guys every Saturday night, 9:30. I'm here with one of my co-hosts, Hasan. What's going on? How's it going?
Great, Jerry. What's going on? Nice to meet everybody, and we'll be covering this whole 2022 season.
Yes, exactly. So basically the way that this show is going to run is it's going to be just like we do our offensive podcast, but this is going to be IDP oriented. So all your linebackers, defensive tackles, defensive ends, cornerbacks, we're going to talk about those guys as if you're making waiver claims for them or trying to trade for these guys and going over their stats from the previous week. So it's going to be fun. Like, I think the cool thing about it is not every year, but it seems like fantasy is just evolving. Like years ago, back in the early 2000s, and even before then, it was just one quarterback, two running backs, two wide receivers, a tight end, and then that was your team, right? And then eventually it got into people adding super flexes, and now PPR is now the standard. So when you say standard, people don't know what you're talking about. It's PPR, points per reception. So I think this is the next step, like getting into IDP, making that more common. And it's fun. Like we do a couple all IDP leagues of our own with no offensive players. I'm in one with you. I'm in one with our other co-host Jordan, who can't make it tonight. And it's fun. What are your thoughts on IDP? How long have you been playing?
I started this league about 4 years ago with a group of my friends, and we were like, let's not do any offense. We were like, let's do like a 20-man roster. Let's go about, well, it was 21. So we were like 7, 7, 7. Let's do it that way. And then it was really, the first couple of weeks, we all really were struggling with it. Everyone, because beforehand, as you said, fantasy has evolved a lot, So beforehand, maybe you were picking one IDP player per week in your league as the max ever, as just some linebacker, you threw in that you saw has the highest tackles in the whole entire league. You just picked them up off waivers, you threw them on there, you never thought about it, So we had to figure out, okay, what exactly is what? Because there are so many more categories of scoring as well when it comes to IDP versus offense. So many more categories. So you have to figure out everything. You have to figure out that it actually matters that a QB gets hit, that even though that's not, a stat that really does anything in terms of like affecting the game of football, in those leagues, you're going to get points for a hit on the QB, So we had to figure that out. It was fun because it was Nick Bosa's rookie year, actually. Yeah. So I remember going back and forth all season because that was also Josh Allen, the linebacker, the D lineman, his rookie year as well. And they were kind of going back and forth all season long when it came to like the same category. Everything categories wise was the same for them, basically. Josh Allen at 10.5 sacks, 44 quarterback hits, 47 tackles for loss, 2 forced fumbles, 1 pass defended, 1 pass intercepted. Joey Bosa had 9 sacks, 47 quarterback hits. 47 tackles for 44 tackles for loss. Sorry. And then, just very similar statistics. So we had to figure all of that out. And then I ended up winning the first year. And the defensive matchup at the end, it was great. It was great because by the end of the year, we had all gotten to a point, all of us, where it was just like, It was just rolling. Like after I would say week 5, week 6, we knew exactly what we were doing. We were waiting for the waiver claims to hit at midnight so we could snag somebody first. We knew exactly what it was, and we've done that, every year since. And I'm in the league with them again this year, and one with you, as we were talking about earlier. So, and I think again, it's the next evolution.
Yeah, it's IDP is fun. This is the first year I'm doing the full IDPs, the one with you and then the separate one with Jordan. They're both 12-team leagues, full IDP rosters. I think they're set up 4-4-4 with a couple flexes, or 4-3-4 with a couple flexes, one way or another. And then we got bigger benches. Like the cool thing about IDP is, and I mentioned this when we were chatting it up before, but there's more opportunity for points. Like when you're playing with the offensive players, 5 of the guys on the offensive side of the ball are not getting any points at all. That's the 5 offensive linemen, right? And then sometimes they throw a fullback in there. Sometimes they throw a backup tight end in there. Now those guys can get points, but you're not going to start them unless you're in a super deep league. In an IDP league, you got 11 different guys on the field that have an opportunity at points, whether it be tackles, pass breakups, forced fumbles. Now, obviously, not everybody is going to be shining every single game, but that's still, you got 11 players plus the backups, obviously, times 32 teams, gives you a bunch of players to choose from on the IDP side of the ball. And the biggest thing, and I'm glad you mentioned it, was a big reason why I don't think people play a lot of IDP outside of really not wanting to learn the players is the scoring. I mean, I've been in IDP leagues where the scoring is just as generic as a kicker or a defense, where you're just streaming a guy, and that's not the way to go. Like you want to make the scoring even out, where a defensive lineman is worth as much as a wide receiver or something like that, and make it be even across the board. And when you're in your draft, you're in your 30-round draft, and it's the 5th round, 6th round, you're like, do I want to take Chase Young right here, or do I want to go with DJ Moore? So it's pretty fun. So that's a little bit of a background on kind of what IDP is. Obviously, I think if you're watching this podcast, you have an idea of what it is, so we don't need to get too much into it. But hopefully this invites some new people into IDP. And hopefully it just grows with the community, and people just start using it more. And just as like a side note too, the guy that we kind of work with, Jeff, the way he runs some of his leagues, like he does like 16, 18 team leagues that all the writers are in. And he adds a couple IDP flexes, takes out the quarterback, but adds super flex spots. So you open up the pool of players. And it makes the quarterback a little bit less valuable, but you have if you're stuck with a guy like Geno Smith, you might have a better IDP or a pair of IDPs, and your scoring isn't going to sacrifice because you don't have a good quarterback. So like if you're in a bigger league like that, throw a couple IDPs in there, lessen the quarterback points, and even it out, so that's definitely a way to go. Let's get into the news here. Basically, the only news that we got are just some injuries, some key injuries that might affect your lineups in IDP this weekend. The questionables: J.J. Watt for the Cardinals, Honey Badger, Tyrann Mathieu for the Saints. They're both questionable. I think Honey Badger had an illness, not exactly sure what it is. They didn't specify if it was COVID or not, but he is questionable, so there's still a chance that he plays against Atlanta this weekend. Doubtful is J.C. Jackson, Kayvon Thibodeau of the Giants, J.C. Jackson now of the Chargers, former Patriot, Mario Addison, edge rusher from the Texans. So those are doubtful. A lot of times, I think the number was 70 or 80% of the time, a doubtful ends up being out. So you can pretty much almost count on those guys being out. And then the for sure outs, a couple of these came through today. Shaquille Darius Leonard, Cameron Curl of the Commanders, Darius Leonard obviously of the Colts, Trayvon Mullen, the new DB for the Cardinals, Travis Jones, DT for the Ravens, and Greedy Williams, DB for the Browns. And I'll switch it over to you for that, because I know you are as much as you're a Titans fan, you are upset about Shaquille Leonard being out. So give us your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I mean, Shaquille, he's always high on, the linebackers list, whether it be the end of the season, whether it be week to week, he's good for 130 tackles basically every single season. He's going to force a lot of turnovers. And whenever he plays Houston, he forces tons of turnovers. Forced fumbles is his thing versus Houston. So they're going to miss that definitely. Bobby Okriki is going to come in. He's going to do his thing. He has learned a lot from from Shaquille Leonard, but it's going to take a little bit to get used to that.
Yeah.
But he had been participating in practices though, and that was the surprising thing. At the beginning of the week, Monday, it was, hey, he's participating fully. He's going, and then just bam, today, all right, he's out. And I was like, man, because he's definitely up high on the list usually, and having to scratch him last minute, that affects a lot of lineups. It's going to affect my lineup in some leagues, you know what I mean? And that's going to affect a lot of people in general who use IDP in their leagues as well, because a lot of people know Shaq Leonard just by name as well. So even if you're doing the whole streaming just the one flex, I'm sure you've streamed Shaq Leonard before as well. So
that's a
lot of people.
That's a scramble pick there, because for the most part, he probably was a top 5 linebacker drafted in most of your drafts. One of the top 5 overall IDPs off the board, I would imagine, behind, like, not even behind, but around Roquan and Jordan Brooks and stuff like that. He's a guy, like, you're not going to find another Shaq Leonard on the bench or on the on waivers right now. So it's going to be tough. The good thing is, like you said, he was practicing this week for a little bit, so hopefully this isn't a long-term injury. Hopefully maybe it is just this week. I don't want to knock any team. We're going into week 1, so everybody's at an even playing field. But if there's a game to miss, it's the Jags, So hopefully he can just take this rest here. The Colts can still come out with a win, and maybe he's ready for week 2. Let's recap a little bit of Thursday night's game. So, as we said at the top of the show, this show is gonna be Saturday at 9:30 when you're watching us. So for the most part, Thursday night football is gonna have happened already. So when we talk about a lot of the rankings and we talk about a lot of the in-show stuff, we're pretty much gonna skip talking about starting Thursday night players, because the game already started. Obviously, it's already over with. So what we'll do is we'll end up just breaking down the game from Thursday, let you know if there's any players that might be on waivers that you could go after for the following week. But most of what we talk about on the show is going to be for tomorrow's games and Monday's game too. So, but as far as the Thursday night game between the Rams and the Bills, a couple notes that I took away from it. Ed Oliver suffered an ankle injury. As far as his status goes, he is day-to-day. They do have that extra day off before they play their next game. Next game is next Monday as opposed to Sunday against your Tennessee Titans. That's the Bills home opener. That'll be fun. Christian Benford, the rookie cornerback, he played 58% of the snaps, while rookie first-round pick Kyer Elam only played 44%. So that was a bit of a shock there. Benford had a great camp, great preseason, and I'm in a Bills chat group because obviously, I don't know if people know I'm a Bills fan, but I'm a Bills fan. So I'm in a Bills chat group, and they're heavy into like the prospects and stuff like that. And I get a lot of news from them. But the way that they were saying was when the starting line, or when like the leaks of the starting lineup came out, and Sean McDermott didn't exactly name Kyer Elam as a starter, the guys in the chat were like, it's got to be Christian Benford, because he would have just came out and said your first round pick is starting the game, so Benford ended up playing more snaps than Elam. I wasn't able to really obviously I watched the game on TV, but I didn't really notice either of them. I noticed when Elam was on the field. Cooper Kupp still had a really good game, so it wasn't like either of them were covering him, blanketing him or anything, but it's still to see. The thing that you could take away from this is if Benford is available on your waiver wire, he's a guy out of this grouping that I would probably look at picking up if he's going to be seeing 50-60% of the snaps. Obviously, Trey White's going to end up coming back at some point. But this is a guy that he's probably not drafted. He's probably just sitting there on your waivers right now. A corner for the Bills that's not named Trey White is typically a guy that I would like to go at because other teams are going to have to pass on you. The Bills are going to put up a lot of points. So in order to catch up, you're going to have to pass back. So I would like to attack their secondary. Even though their secondary is good, I'd probably like to put out their players in my IDP lineup because you're going to get stats from them. A couple other things. Sean McDermott continues his rotating DL. Daquan Jones and Greg Rousseau played 68 and 67% respectively, but 8 different defensive linemen in the game saw 25% of snaps. And that's he's been doing that since he's been the coach. He always, I think last year, the highest percentage for the full year was Jerry Hughes and maybe Greg Rousseau, and they were just in the upper 50s, lower 60s as far as percentage goes. So like if you want a defensive lineman, or if you're scouring the waiver wire, look into the Bills defensive lineman because they're going to get snaps. 25% was the least for them. Nick Scott for the Rams safety played 88% of the snaps, while Jordan Fuller only played 30%. I think people were looking at Jordan Fuller as being a breakout guy for the Rams in the secondary, but Nick Scott ended up playing a lot of those snaps. And then Bobby Wagner, Taylor Rapp, and Jalen Ramsey all were on the field 100% of the times for defensive snaps. So that's what I got for Thursday's game. I know you had some notes for Thursday, or if you want to piggyback off of any of mine, what do you got?
Yeah, I was going to say, one guy that is probably sitting on waivers and no one drafted is Ernest Jones. He also had 15 points. He also led, Wagner and him led the Rams in tackles with 7 apiece. Ernest Jones got, 15 points yesterday, 7 tackles. That was great. And I'm sure that's a name that not a lot of people have, heard of, unless you're super diehard into IDP. Oliver going out early with an ankle sprain, that hurt because he was having a great game at the point when he did get hurt. Leonard Floyd, I mean, he had been killing it the last 2 years with Aaron Donald due to all the double and triple teams Donald season. He just really wasn't able to do anything yesterday. Didn't really do that much. Donald, he got his sack. Donald's going to do his thing. It's Aaron Donald. Not much more needs to be said. Jordan Poyer, he played pretty well. Played up to standard, I would say.
Still seeking that contract, but he was out there.
Yeah. Still seeking that contract. You're right. And then Von Miller. How can we not talk about Von? He ended up getting 28 points yesterday, more than doubling his projection. That I thought was amazing. And a crazy stat, I'll tell you, that I just heard literally maybe 20 minutes before he started talking was no team did this last year. The Bills were the first team to have seven sacks and 3 takeaways in one game together. So if you got so that didn't happen all last year. No team was able to accomplish that last year. So if you got any Bills, front 7 or back 4, sitting on waivers, go grab them. They're going to do their thing all year. They're going to do their thing all year as they did last year.
Yeah, for sure. It's Von Miller is another one to bring up. Obviously, his name recognition is he's probably was picked up in a lot of leagues just because of his name and being on the defense. But I think it was one of those things where if you follow IDP very closely, or you follow the one stat that I mentioned was the rotating DL that Sean McDermott puts out there, maybe he is available, or because you're not going to get 75, 80% of snaps from him, where you could go get 75, 80% of snaps from another defensive lineman and have a better chance at points. So if you're going to get 50% of the snaps out of Von Miller, but he's going to give you 2 sacks and a few tackles, I mean, that's still that's worth going to pick up. And the only other takeaway, and I already touched on it, was that he played 100%, but you could take away a lot from Bobby Wagner playing 100%. I mean, he's a little bit older, but he was signed to a decently big contract with the Rams, and so he's going to be out there. So he's probably not available either. He's another one that people know his name. The position that he plays, linebacker, a lot of them are on rosters right now. But if you have an opportunity to get somebody like him, where he's going to be out there 95, 100% of the time, he plays that middle of the field position. Definitely look into that. So, yeah, it was a good game the other night. Obviously, me being a Bills fan, I loved it. My boy Gabe Davis scoring a touchdown, Jalen Ramsey getting burnt by Stephon Diggs, but we're not here for offense. Let's not talk about that.
Yeah.
Right.
That was one other thing I wanted to mention. Ramsey, he scored 12 somehow, but again, as you said, burnt toast last night. But again, we're not here to talk about offense. So,
all right. Next little segment that we got here. We're not going to bore you with our league, just like and go through every single player's rosters and stuff like that. But we're just going to kind of keep you guys up to date on how our IDP league is doing. So kind of keep you in the loop, kind of give you an idea of if you were ever looking into an IDP league, like what you could really look forward to. So me and Hasan are in a separate IDP league. He calls it Defense Wins Championships. He's the commissioner in this league. We are actually against each other in week 1, which is pretty cool. One of us has to take a loss right away. That kind of sucks. I did have Ed Oliver. He got me a solid 4 points. You got 13 points out of Jordan Poyer. So pretty much you're off to a good start getting 13 points out of one of your defensive backs. But you have it set up 3 defensive linemen, 4 linebackers, 4 defensive backs, and then an IDP flex. Pretty decent sized bench. I think it's like 9 or 10 bench, and then a few IR spots. But it's going to be a fun league. Kind of just kind of keep you guys in the loop on how players are scoring in that league, because we do use it's not exactly IDP 1, 2, 3 scoring, but it does favor pretty much all the positions. So you're not getting like 40 to 45 scores. We're projected to get around 150, 170 in this league between all the players. So it's going to be fun. We'll keep you in the loop as far as that goes. If you want to mention anything about the league, you can. If not, we'll move on to the next segment here.
Just real quick, I wanted to mention one person in our league just off Von Miller and Gregory Rousseau scored 49 points just off 2 players yesterday.
Yes.
So
pretty awesome there.
Definitely.
All right. One of our weekly segments that we're going to have is going to be we're all going to do our rankings just like we would on the offensive side of the ball, rank the quarterbacks, running backs, wide receivers. But in this case, it's going to be the defensive linemen all grouped together, the linebackers all grouped together, and the defensive backs all grouped together. So 3 different categories of rankings. We'll go over our top 10s for the week, going into Sunday nights or Sunday's games. So if you were kind of stuck between 2 players, maybe you could use our rankings and go that way. So I'll start us off with the defensive line. That was my rankings this week. We're going to pretty much switch that around every week. So next week, maybe I'll have linebackers. But as far as defensive line go, my top 10 is Nick Bosa, Cameron Jordan, Myles Garrett, Justin Simmons, TJ Watt, he's got the dual eligibility, Christian Wilkins, Hendrickson from the Bengals, Shaquille Barrett, and Leonard Williams. So Aaron Donald was in there, but again, I'm not going to talk about a guy that already played, so I skipped over him. So my 11th guy was Leonard Williams. Getting into like why these are my top 10, and why TJ Watt is down at 5 and not number 1, even though he was one of the best defensive players last year. I'll just start off off the bat with that TJ Watt, because that's been one of the questions that I've been getting when I posted this in a few groups. TJ Watt, he only played one of the 2 games versus the Bengals last year. He only had 1 tackle in those 2 games, or in that 1 game that he played, 1 tackle. And that was with a bad offensive line for the Bengals. Bengals substantially improved their offensive line. And obviously that's their opponent this week. I mean, yeah, Big Ben was a statue as well, and Mitch Trubisky could run a little bit more. But it is, I don't know. They're gonna try to contain him. Basically, it's gonna be one of those things where, yeah, you're not gonna bench TJ Watt. And again, I have him number 5. It's not like I don't have him outside of my top 20 at all. I got him at number 5, but you're not gonna bench TJ Watt. You're gonna throw him in at your DL or LB position, but you just temper expectations, because recent history has him really not doing too well against the Bengals. And again, like I said, the Bengals got significantly better. Joe Burrow is slowly turning into one of the better quarterbacks in the league. He can get the ball out fast. He's got weapons to throw it to get it out fast. He can get it to Mixon out of the backfield, so he's not taking any sacks or hits. Mixon is elusive enough to where he shouldn't be hit behind the line, so your tackle for loss leagues shouldn't really be affected there. So if he's healthy and plays the whole game, I think he's going to have a solid, decent day. Just temper expectations on him. Nick Bosa going up against a weaker Chicago offensive line. That's why I got him at number 1. Same reason why I got Cameron Jordan at number 2. Edge rushers are always going to kind of get a little bit more of a boost over the defensive tackles, even though Justin Simmons is number 4 for me. Yeah, 4, because I think he's a big run stuffer going up against who they go up against, the Giants. So they're going to be, if they're running Barkley a lot, you're probably going to get a lot of big plays from Simmons up there in the middle. So that's why he's a little bit higher on my list. But Bosa, Jordan, and Myles Garrett, 3 edge rushers coming off the edge against weaker offensive lines. That's my 1, 2, and 3, and I'm sticking to it.
All right. So I'm going to go ahead with the top 10 linebackers. That's my position group this week. Roquan Smith, Jordan Brooks, Foy Okolone, Bobby Wagner, Fred Warner, Micah Parsons, Devin White, Devondre Campbell, and TJ Watt. And
you go one more, because we had Bobby Wagner.
Yeah, we had Bobby Wagner. So CJ Mosley then. CJ Mosley will be right there. So easily for me, Jordan Brooks, number 2, Roquan Smith. I favor the matchup because he's all they got. He's all they got. San Francisco is going to run, and Roquan's probably going to be the spy, put on Trey Lance, and Trey, I know we only saw 1 game last year, but he ran the ball 11 times in that 1 game, so Roquan's going to have his opportunities there. He's going to have his opportunities over the middle with short passes, and we know that he loves a short passing game. Of course, through the run, they're gonna, San Francisco, the Shanahans, they're always gonna do their running back by committee thing. Elijah Mitchell might get a bulk of carries week 1, but again, they're still gonna run a lot, so it doesn't matter who he's tackling, as long as he's tackling. And then, yeah, Jordan Brooks, I mean, the guy had 180 plus tackles last year, and his running mate, Bobby Wagner, is gone now. Basically, Jordan Brooks took over what KJ Wright was doing with Bobby Wagner before for years and years and years, and expounded on it immensely. And then, so now it's on Brooks to do everything. And then Foy Okolone, definitely, because Carson Wentz loves throwing to running backs. He's already thrown for over 500 yards to Miles Sanders before, threw for close to 500 to Nyheim Hines last year. Jonathan Taylor got over about 300. So there's definitely going to be, and Gibson is a pass catching running back. So there's definitely going to be a lot of opportunities for him there. And then obviously with no Brian Robinson, Gibson's going to see a lot of work, and then McKissick will come in for some of those third downs, and then Foy's got his chances there. And then, honestly, right now, the Commanders, they're going into a thing where outside of Terry McLaurin, we really don't know what they have yet on offense when it comes to like the passing game in terms of what they're going to do most of the time. Ron Rivera definitely has his tendencies where he's a run heavy kind of coach, but I'm expecting shorter passes over the middle, lots of opportunities for Foy off of that, definitely. And again, as you said, you're sticking with it. I'm sticking with it.
Yeah, it's a good top 10. Jordan Brooks is really high on my list just overall this year. I mean, that Seattle defense is going to be on the field a lot. He's my favorite to win the tackle title. I've been grabbing him where I can. He was my first or second round pick in one of our IDPs. The other one, I had the first pick in your league. I ended up with Roquan Smith. I don't want to pick Brooks that high, so I had to go a different route. But I mean, if I had to, I would have. So I'm very confident in Brooks this year. He is probably my favorite linebacker to like I said, to win the tackle title this year. But I mean, all of those guys that you mentioned, I mean, they're all tackling machines. Good matchups for a few of them. As far as linebackers go, you want linebackers that are going to be on the field a lot, number one, and then target the ones that have favorable matchups, like Alukin or Brooks, Smith, and Alukin. I always get his name screwed up, but they're on weaker defenses. So that those are the backbones of those defenses. Those are the guys that are going to rack up 150, 160 tackles. Those are guys that you want. As far as the DBs go, this was Jordan's category, but I'll give you the top 10 here, and then I'll let you give me your thoughts on who you really like out of this group. He's got Jeremy Chin 1, Antoine Winfield 2, Derwin James 3, Jamal Adams 4. He had Poyer at 5, who already played. Harrison Smith, so we'll say is 5. Buda Baker 6, Kevin Byard 7, Justin Simmons 8. I know I messed up the DL. It was actually Jeffrey Simmons on the DL. Justin Simmons, the DB for Denver. Minka Fitzpatrick 9, and Xavier McKinney 10. So what do you think about his top 10? Well, top 11. Jordan Poyer was in there as well. And what do you like coming out of here?
I love Jeremy Chin at number 1. I'm going to talk at length about him and Shaq Thompson later. Jeremy Chin is just he's all over the field all the time. He's gonna be everywhere, as he's always asked to be. And with Jeremy Chin, he's a tackling machine, and they use him in both. They use him coming up high, going back low, so he can tackle receivers. It doesn't matter if they're 50 yards down the field. Doesn't matter if they're 3 yards right in front of you. He's gonna tackle them. And then he's gonna come up. I like Jamal Adams as well. I really like Jamal Adams as well because he's been playing with Russell Wilson. So he knows, I know he's, again, weaker defense, but Jamal Adams is one of, he's the backbone in the secondary, and he has to, again, he's also asked to do a million things on the field, just like Jeremy Chin is. So he's going to have to do his thing. And, again, tackling machine. And he might, I know this might be a hot take, and Jamal Adams does get a lot of hate, but he is a very smart player, in my opinion. He knows his limitations. He's not going to go and be like, let me go cover the best guy. He knows he's not going to be able to do that. So he uses his strengths. He set the NFL record for, sacks by safety, 9.5 a couple years ago, So, but the hot take is that Russell Wilson is so good at faking people out when he's about to run. He's changed over the years into that, basically, where he used to run so much, and now he's so good at just running when he needs to. I think Adams is smart enough to be able to keep up with Russ on that. We might be able to get him once or twice behind the line.
I like it. And so if you haven't been paying attention or keeping up, you'll notice that outside of Winfield, the three of the top four guys that Jordan ranked for his DBs, they kind of play that hybrid role. They're tackling machines, and even Winfield is a tackling machine too. But Chin, Derwin James, and Jamal Adams are all now. Chin might have the linebacker designation as well, but even then, like, you don't want to play if you have the opportunity to play either linebacker or defensive back. You're always going to choose defensive back because then you can get more linebackers in your roster. So, and the same thing with defensive linemen and linebackers. If they're dual eligible, put them at the non-linebacker position because then you could throw linebackers in your linebacker positions, and then you have more linebackers on your team in your starting lineup where you're going to get more tackles out of them. But Chin kind of plays like that hybrid role. Jamal Adams has been playing that hybrid role since he was with the Jets. And Derwin James, when he's healthy, is a tackling machine. Another one, and I'm going to talk about him a little bit later, Isaiah Simmons, he's listed as a linebacker as well. I don't know if they gave him the defensive back eligibility, but if they did, he's another one that I would throw up there. He might even have made the list if they gave him that eligibility.
They did.
Okay, so he should be a little bit higher on here then too. So Isaiah Simmons with Arizona, because he's another one. He came out as a linebacker, but he has that safety eligibility that he has the knowledge of what a linebacker does to make those tackles, but he's still you can put him back as a defensive back. So those are, I mean, they're kind of like cheat codes in your leagues. You want those dual eligible players that have most of them, 99% of the players that are dual eligible, it's going to be position / linebacker. You're not going to see like a defensive back / defensive end. So that's never going to happen. So it's position / linebacker. And when you have that, I think that gives you an edge in a lot of IDP.
Definitely.
All right. So our next segment, this is what we're going to do every week as well, is we're going to go over, now some of these names we may have mentioned already, but we're going to go over our favorite two defensive linemen, 2 linebackers, and 2 defensive backs of the week. Each of us are going to do that. So when we have Jordan on here, it's going to be 18 players. When it's just me and you, or just me and Jordan, it's going to be 12 players. So just guys that we really like their matchups. They might have been in our top 10s, but even if they're not in the top 10s, we like their matchups. And we'll just go back and forth. So I'll give my first defensive lineman, then you give yours, and we'll kind of just go back and forth. So my first one is Neville Gallimore, defensive tackle for the Cowboys. I wanted to attack. Basically, the reason I got him is because I wanted to attack the Tampa Bay Bucks interior offensive line. They're in shambles right now. They still got Wirfs on the outside, so I really didn't want to go to edge because DeMarcus Lawrence was also in consideration for me. I wanted to go right up the middle. Gallimore, not technically listed as a starter, but over the past 2 years that he's been in the league, he's seeing about 48% of snaps, so he's going to be out there. If you could get him in there and get a nice couple of hits on Brady or hit Leonard Fournette before he hits the hole, I could see a solid outing from Gallimore on playing from the defensive tackle position. Now, another thing, defensive tackles are hard unless your commissioner restricts you to playing. You have to play 2 DTs and 2 DEs. For the most part, you're probably going to play a lot of edge rushers. You're going to play 4 edge rushers, 3 edge rushers, whatever your setup is. So defensive tackles, it's a little tough because they don't get a lot of the stats that you would want out of them. But we all know Brady doesn't have wheels. Now, he is quicker at getting rid of the ball. So he might not take a lot of hits. He might not give up a lot of sacks, but with that offensive line, he's going to have to get rid of the ball a lot quicker than what he's used to. Gallimore could get to him and maybe give you some nice points.
Yeah, I'm liking Marcus Davenport versus Atlanta. And that is simply, I'm going to expand on this later as well. The Saints we're talking half decade plus have dominated Atlanta, no matter who's been on that offensive line, no matter what. So Davenport, he's a good player in general. He is always, when he's healthy, he is healthy right now, so take advantage of it. Atlanta is always an easy matchup for New Orleans, and Davenport is a huge part of that interior rush. And I'm 1,000% sure he's going to get some tackles for loss because Atlanta's going to try to run. Atlanta's going to try to run here, there. Cordell Patterson. And Patterson, he started the year off great last year, but towards the end of the year last year, he was getting hit a lot behind the line because people were figuring out what was going on. So I expect Davenport to take advantage of that right there, 1,000%. And then Mariota also holds on to the ball a little bit too long. So I feel like he also might be able to snag one, maybe half a sack, help out Cam Jordan, get half a sack or something like that as well. And unless you're Aaron Donald, you're not really getting sacks out of the DTs. So anything like that works.
Yeah, and I mean, you could even use my same knowledge as Atlanta's offensive line isn't that great, so they're gonna get to the quarterback. They're gonna get in the backfield. So I like that pick a lot too. My other defensive lineman is an edge rusher, Montez Sweat for the Commanders. Chase Young is looking a little rough. I don't believe we haven't mentioned him. He wasn't in the outs. Is he out this week?
Yeah, Chase Young's on PUP. He's on the PUP list. Yep.
Okay, all right. So yeah, Montez Sweat, edge rusher for the Commanders, going up against the Jaguars. Now their line is a little bit better than the Bucks, and their line is a little bit better. Well, line's a little bit better than the Bucks. Line's a little bit better than the Falcons, but Montez Sweat, really good edge rusher. I think he's going to have a lot more opportunity with Chase Young being out of the lineup. The Washington Commanders defense, they struggled a lot last year. Had some injuries. Obviously, Chase Young went down, but they have, even with or without Chase Young, they have top half of the league potential, and it's all going to be on Montez Sweat. He could be one of the better edge rushers in the league. Again, it was more of the offensive line that he's going up against. For me, going up against the Jags, so not to get too much into it. Montez Sweat is my next defensive lineman I got.
All right. Next defensive lineman I got, it's going to be a D end, and I'm going to go with Bud Dupree versus the Giants. As most know, Harold Landry just, last week tore his ACL. He's out for the season. The Titans had a very good front four last year with Jeffrey Simmons, Nico Autry, Harold Landry, and Bud Dupree when he played as a foursome of getting sacks together, but Dupree individually wasn't getting them a lot. Landry, Autry, and Simmons were the three getting them individually a lot, but Dupree was still opening it up for them. So now I expect, with Landry going down and Dupree on a big contract and fully healthy coming into the year, rather than last year where he came into the year, it was unknown if he was going to play week one. Was he recovered from his torn ACL? This year, we know he's 100% healthy, ready to go. So I think he has to, if Tennessee wants to do anything this year, he's going to have to do that all year. And I love it against the New York Giants offensive line.
I like it. That's he was in consideration for me, but I wanted to give him to you. So I took Sweat. My first linebacker, he was on, actually both my linebackers were on your list in the top 10. So kind of cheating here, but I'm going to say him anyways. CJ Mosley is my first one, linebacker for the Jets, going up against the Ravens. And the other one, okay, I'll just go. So you go do your two after, is Jordan Brooks. I already touched on Brooks, so I'm not going to repeat everything I said about him. He plays Monday night against the Broncos, going to be on the field a lot. But that's my reasoning behind Mosley too. And Mosley going up against the Ravens, whether it's Lamar, which it should be, or if it ends up being Huntley, two rushing quarterbacks tend to get sacked a little bit more, because they are trying to make something out of nothing, getting hit behind the line of scrimmage. Now, obviously, they can make you look silly and pick up a bunch of yards on a rush, but them just trying to move around and make something out of nothing, they're opening themselves up for tackles for loss. Mosley, he's fully healthy now. He's going to be the center point of that Jets defense. The Ravens are expected to have a higher powered offense, and they have, with or without Lamar. They've been scoring a lot of points. So the Jets defense is going to be out there quite a bit. Now, it should be improved. They've made a lot of good draft picks and free agency pickups in the last couple of years, and especially this past year. But Mosley being the centerpiece of that offense, he's going to be out there. I like him a lot. Like I said, Jordan Brooks is the other one. I already touched on him a little bit earlier, so I won't go too far into it.
All right. Yeah, my two favorite linebackers, it's a combo. I made it a combo. Levante David and Devin White, both of them. Last year against Dallas in the opener, they had 21 combined tackles and 2 QB hits and 2 tackles for loss. And most games they're combining for around anywhere from 16 to 24 tackles. You know what I mean? Both of them. And so I'm taking them as a combo to make a lot of tackles against the Cowboys. We know that the Cowboys like to throw a lot now. We know that Zeke is gonna have to be out there as well for pass protection, because their offensive line is getting older, and Zeke is a good pass protection, excuse me. So, which can lead to leak outs for him, which will lead to tackles for White and David apiece. White is also, in coverage, he is also asked to do a lot, and he's gotten better at it. So, he's going to make the tackles if it's caught easily. And then Levante David, he's been doing this for a decade plus too, so I expect him to take advantage of any matchup. So that's my line.
I'm glad you said that about White, as far as coverage goes, because it's another little quick tip for you, for you guys listening, that attack linebackers that are in coverage against athletic tight ends, because those are the guys that they're going to see. So Dallas has one of the top, I mean, I wouldn't call Schultz athletic, but he's one of the top pass catching tight ends that we have in the league, top 5, top 10, wherever you want to put him. He's definitely in that top half. So if White's going to be out there in coverage, it might be up against Dalton Schultz. Dalton Schultz likes to get targeted by Dak Prescott. You got some opportunity right there. So definitely keep that in mind. My defensive backs that I wanted to attack either the dual eligible players or guys that are tackle machines on defenses that are going to be against high-powered offenses. So the first one I got is Isaiah Simmons for the Cardinals. I already talked about him a little bit, so I'll keep it short again. He's got that dual eligibility. You mentioned off camera he's been working a lot with the safeties, so that's something that he should be back there. He's looking up all the depth charts. The Cardinals are one of the few teams that list a star position, and that's what Isaiah Simmons is. He's not quite a linebacker, but he's not quite a safety either, because they got Budda Baker back there at safety. They got Zaven Collins in the middle for linebacker. So it's not like he's not a specific set position, but he's going to be on the field. He's basically like a nickel corner, but with between the linebacker and the safety. And that's he's going to be all over the field. They play against the Chiefs, so you got Kelsey over the middle and going deep. You got Juju over the middle. You got MVS going deep. So there's definitely going to be a lot of opportunities for tackles. I wouldn't necessarily say interceptions, because Pat Mahomes doesn't throw a lot of those, but definitely a lot of opportunities for tackles against the Chiefs in the highest over-under game of the week, the Chiefs and the Cardinals.
Nice. Yeah, I actually got a Cardinal. I got Budda Baker right behind Isaiah Simmons for you, because he is a tackling machine himself, and he definitely, as we said, I think the Chiefs are going to put up a lot of points. Patrick Mahomes doesn't care who you are; he's going to throw you the ball, and then Budda Baker, as soon as that ball is complete, Baker will be there to make a tackle, 100%. And if it's not a solo tackle, it'll be a assisted tackle with Simmons. So
Yep,
I love
perfect.
that. And I had already mentioned I had already talked about Jeremy Chin, but that was my second favorite.
Okay. Yeah,
defense
perfect.
of the week. So I already talked about Chin, tackling machine, dual eligible monster.
Keep it short and sweet. For my other defensive back, I didn't want to cheat code this one, so I went with the Steelers, but I didn't go Minka. I went Terrell Edmonds. But all the same reasons that I would have went Minka. Basically, another high-powered offense. Joe Burrow has a plethora of weapons to throw it to. Edmonds can be all over the field, whether he's on Chase's side, Higgins' side, in the slot with Boyd, mixing out of the backfield, Hayden Hurst from the tight end position. There's plenty of opportunity on the Steelers' defense to get some tackles, get some pass breakups, get some sacks in there if you can get to Burrow and get through that rejuvenated offensive line. So keep it short and sweet. Went with Edmonds. Like I said, I kind of cheated with Mosley and Brooks, so I didn't want to throw Minka in there too. So I just went with Terrell Edmonds. I mean, I obviously like Minka a little bit more, but I wouldn't. And Terrell Edmonds is a guy that you might actually be able to find on waivers too. So that's a little bit of a cheat right there if you could go find him and pick him up before Sunday's games. Our final segment that we got, and this isn't really IDP oriented, but it's more defensive special teams oriented. We're going to give you our one favorite defensive special team of the week, our streamer of the week, we'll call it. Whether we agree on the same one or we each have a different one. Obviously, teams like now, if you just had your draft a couple days ago before the first game of the season, Tuesday, Wednesday, you most likely drafted your defense because there's no point in not drafting them and then just dropping a guy that you drafted right away and picking up a defense. But teams like Denver are probably taken already. Baltimore's probably taken because they play the Jets. Colts are probably taken because they play the Texans. So I wanted to dig a little bit deeper and give you a team that might still be out there. Decent matchup. Now on paper, if this other team's quarterback was playing, they blow this team out of the water. But without this starting quarterback playing, my favorite defense that might be out there right now is the Carolina Panthers. We've already talked about Jeremy Chin, Brian Burns on the defensive line. They got a nice young core of linebackers up against the Browns with Jacoby Brissett. Now Nick Chubb, I think he's still going to do his thing. They got one of the better offensive lines there, so it's going to be hard to get the Jacoby. It's going to be hard to get the Chubb. Kareem Hunt could make some work out of the backfield. The pass catchers really aren't that great. So if you can get pressure to Jacoby and make him throw, I think the defensive backs for the Carolina Panthers could take advantage of weaker pass catchers for the Browns and cause some turnovers. And if you do grab them, you can hold out on them for week 2 because they got the Giants in week 2. And then they got an iffy matchup in week 3 against the Saints. Now the Saints, I wouldn't say they're not a favorite to win their division, but they're a favorite to compete for their division, the NFC South. But we saw a handful or more than a handful of games last year of Jameis, but then the time before that we saw Jameis before that, he was throwing 30 interceptions. So we don't know which Winston we're going to get. So let's keep an eye on the Saints for the first 2 weeks. If he's back to old Winston or they have to go to a different quarterback or something happens with Kamara, they might be a good streaming match for week 3. So you potentially have from Carolina, 3 weeks worth of streaming defense right here, if not at least 2 versus the Browns and the Giants.
Mine is exactly
you went with the Panthers.
Yeah, I went with the Panthers as well. Definitely for every reason you stated. Jacoby. It's weird. Jacoby's got a cannon, but he never uses it. He's just always short pass over the middle. And again, as you said, those defensive backs, they'll have a hard time getting to him, but those defensive backs can definitely take advantage and grab some interceptions here and there. Brissett, I would not be surprised if he went for a 1 TD, 3 interception game, maybe threw for 210 yards, something like that. And, they got held 13 points, something around there. I would not be surprised whatsoever. So yeah, definitely Carolina. And again, for week 2 as well, against the Giants. We already talked about the Giants. and why defenses are favorable against them. And then, yeah, as you said, Jameis watch, and I'll include the Michael Thomas watch in there as well. He has not scored a touchdown since 2019, so we need to see what he looks like as well.
Yep.
So, yeah, potentially could be 3 weeks. So, yep.
3 weeks of streamers. I didn't look beyond 3 because I didn't. Because I was kind of iffy on the Saints. So I mean, they could have a good week 4 matchup too. I didn't go beyond that, but yeah. So that's pretty much how the IDP pod is going to go. Our Cover Zero pod is going to be pretty much just like this every week. Talk about the news, talk about the Thursday night game that happened, talk about our rankings, and then go over our favorite players, our favorite IDP players of the week, and then give you a defensive special team streamer. And that's going to be a combination of me, Hasan, and Jordan. Jordan's done the prop bet podcast with me, the betting podcast with me. He's got an article out now if you want to go take a look at it on GoingFor2's website, his top 10 bold predictions for the week. He's going to kind of track them every week and see how good he did on his bold predictions. And they're pretty bold. I mean, he's got Mike Williams finishing as a top 5 wide receiver for week 1 against the Raiders. So it's as far as, it's not too far fetched, but it's like you got all the other wide receivers out there challenging him for a top 5 too. So it's pretty bold. So yeah, go check that out. It's going to be a combination of us 3 for the IDP pod every Saturday at 9:30 p.m. on the Going4 2 podcast network. You can find us on YouTube, find us in the Discord, reach out to Jeff Lambert. I'm on Facebook. I'm on Twitter at Jerry Wilkie FM. Hasan, if you got any channels, you go plug them right now.
Yeah, I'm on Twitter at it's gonna be hard to say because it's not really something you can say. It's gonna be it's gonna be at KAAZ as in zebra, EM as in Mary, and E. And then I'm on Facebook again, Hasan Raza Kazmi. Easy to find, very easy to find. Will be the first one that pops up right there. Instagram handle is also just Hasan.r.Cosme. And yeah, that's it.
All right. So until next week, hopefully you guys have a good week 1. Hopefully all your favorite teams win and your fantasy teams win, unless you're playing against me. And we'll see you guys in week 2. Thank you.
Thanks, guys.